The 7 signs of spiritual awakening, when the inner void explodes. Every great transformation begins quietly. Not with fireworks, not with applause, but with an inner trembling. The kind you feel when your old life no longer fits. Yet the new one hasn't fully arrived. This is the doorway of spiritual awakening. It is not gentle. It is not always sweet. It is the cracking of a shell, the breaking of an old skin, the explosion of the void that once was silent inside of you. For some, it begins as restlessness, a sudden discontent with routines, jobs, relationships, or even with one's own thoughts. The colors of life seem faded, the patterns predictable, the laughter forced. You ask yourself, is this all? That question alone is the spark of awakening, because it is the refusal to keep living asleep. This awakening is not fantasy. It is not about floating away from reality, but finally entering it fully, with depth, clarity, and unshakable presence. Ancient teachers have described it for centuries. Some called it enlightenment. Others called it self-realization. In truth, it is the moment your soul begins to remember itself. And here is where the journey unfolds, through signs. Not external miracles, but subtle and powerful shifts within you. These 7 signs are the compass. They are not goals to achieve. They are signals that you are already in motion, that your inner void has exploded into light, and you are walking the path of true awakening. Sign 1, the collapse of illusions. The first sign is brutal honesty. One day, the illusions that shaped your life, the roles, the masks, the false securities, no longer hold. You see through them. You realize that chasing approval, possessions, or endless productivity will never satisfy the hunger inside. It feels like betrayal at first, because the world told you these were the pillars of happiness. But awakening tears down false structures. You may feel lost, even angry, because nothing feels solid anymore. Yet this collapse is sacred. Only when the old scaffolding falls can the true foundation appear. In those moments of collapse, you are closer to truth than you have ever been. Sign 2, heightened sensitivity. Suddenly, everything touches you more deeply. Music feels like liquid fire. Nature seems alive in ways you never noticed. Crowded spaces exhaust you, because you sense the invisible currents of other people's emotions. You are no longer numb. You are awake to energy. This sensitivity can feel like a burden. You may cry more easily or feel overwhelmed by negativity. But know this, your system is recalibrating. You are learning to perceive what was always there, the invisible threads of connection that unite all life. This is not weakness. This is the birth of spiritual intelligence. Sign 3, the search for purpose. At this stage, you cannot be satisfied with surface-level living. Work that only pays bills feels empty. Relationships without depth feel suffocating. You begin to crave meaning like oxygen. You may find yourself reading spiritual books, meditating, journaling, or simply asking questions that go beyond the ordinary. The search for purpose is not about finding one career or role. It is about aligning your life with your soul's deepest vibration. You begin to sense that you are not here by accident. You were meant to awaken, to expand, to contribute something unique. Sign 4, intuition awakens. Logic alone no longer rules you. You begin to trust an inner voice. Subtle, but undeniable. Sometimes it whispers in dreams. Sometimes it comes as a gut feeling that says, turn here, not there. Sometimes it is the sudden clarity that appears in silence. This intuition is not magic. It is the higher self communicating through you. As you awaken, the static of fear and doubt clears, and this voice becomes louder. Learning to trust it is a radical act of freedom, because it means living from truth, not conditioning. Sign 5, crises as catalysts. Awakening is not a vacation. It often arrives through pain, loss, illness, betrayal, sudden changes. These shake the ground beneath your feet. But instead of destroying you, they carve space for a new self to be born. Think of the seed. It must crack open in darkness before it grows toward the sun. Your crises are not punishment. They are invitations. They force you to shed what no longer serves you and step into a life aligned with your spirit. Sign 6, the reordering of values. Suddenly, the things you once worshipped, status, possessions, endless approval, and feel meaningless. Instead, peace, authenticity, love, and growth become treasures. You might walk away from toxic friendships, say no to empty jobs, or change habits you once defended. This reordering is the soul reclaiming authority. It can look strange to others. They may say you've changed, but that is the point. You are no longer living for appearances. You are living for essence. Sign 7, the call to expansion. The final sign is both the simplest and the most profound. You feel called to expand. Not in ego, but in consciousness. You want to grow, to share, to serve. You sense that awakening is not just for you. It is for the collective. You might feel drawn to meditation, creativity, teaching, or acts of service. You want to live in a way that uplifts others, even silently, simply by being more authentic. This call to expansion is not about perfection. It is about alignment. It is about embodying the truth that you are not separate, that your vibration contributes to the whole. And this is where the void truly explodes. What once felt like emptiness reveals itself as infinite space, infinite potential, infinite love. So these are the 7 signs. Not a checklist, not a trend, but a living reality. They come when the soul is ready. They come when silence has been ignored too long. They come when the inner void cracks open and reveals not darkness, but light. Awakening is not about escaping the world. It is about entering it more deeply, with eyes unclouded, with a heart unarmored, with a spirit unafraid to love. If you find yourself here, sensitive, searching, questioning, unraveling, expanding, you are not broken. You are awakening. The path is not easy. It will ask everything of you, but it will give you back something priceless, your true self. And that self, once awakened, cannot go back to sleep. So let the void explode. Let the illusions fall. Let the signs guide you, because the world doesn't need more masks. It needs your awakened essence. So let me ask you something only you can answer. You have felt it, haven't you? That subtle ache that appears when the room is silent, when no one is looking, when the lights are off and there's only you and your own thoughts. It is not sadness. It is not depression. It is something different. A hollow space that whispers, there must be more. This is not madness. This is not failure. This is the first spark of awakening. And so I ask you, when was the last time you truly listened to yourself? Not the voice that repeats old fears, not the one that echoes your parents, your boss, your society, but the voice that waits patiently beneath all noise. Your true essence. Do you remember? Or have you drowned it with screens, endless scrolling, and borrowed affirmations? Awakening begins when silence becomes unbearable, and then suddenly precious. It begins when you realize that being busy is not the same as being alive. It begins when the inner void explodes, not to destroy you, but to carve space for what is real. Eckhart Tolle once said, "Awareness is the greatest agent of change." Awareness, not effort, not performance. Awareness is the light you carry into the dark corridors of your own soul. So let me ask you again, what would happen if, for one day, you stopped running? If you closed the apps, muted the noise, and looked directly into the silence you fear? Would you crumble, or would you finally meet yourself? Awakening is not about becoming something new. It is about remembering what you have always been. It is the courage to peel off the masks one by one until only truth remains. Yes, it will hurt. Yes, you will lose things, illusions, relationships, comforts. But tell me, are these losses, or are they liberations? When Paramahansa Yogananda spoke of divine joy, he said it was not something you chase, but something you uncover. Like sunlight hidden behind clouds, your essence is already luminous. The void you feel is not absence, it is invitation. So I turn the question to you. What are you still postponing? What excuses do you still repeat to yourself? How long will you stand on the shore, applauding the waves, before you dive into the ocean of your own being? Divaldo Franco reminds us that spiritual awakening is never solitary. Your light, once lit, becomes a torch for others. So if not for yourself, awaken for those who are still lost in the dark. Because one awakened soul is enough to shift the balance of an entire family, an entire generation, an entire world. Do you feel it now? The vibration moving through your chest, the quickening of your breath, the trembling in your hands? This is not random. This is your being saying, I am ready. Ready for what? For the simplest and hardest thing of all, to live with presence, to choose depth over distraction, to let the void explode, and then let the light pour through the cracks. So I leave you with one final question. When history tells your story, will you be remembered as the one who slept through life, or as the one who dared to awaken? The choice is yours, and perhaps it begins now.